Around the world, postnatal depression ranges between 10 and 16%. In New Zealand, it's around 16%. However, amongst our Pacific women, we're getting emerging data that it's around the late 20s.
When my son turned 1 year old and I was talking with my husband, we were reminiscing over what he thought was a great time when he was born, and I started talking about actually I didn't enjoy that time. I remember just breaking down that night on my son's birthday, and that started the trend of all these other moods that I started experiencing. I became angrier at little things that people did, frustrated at myself, disappointed in myself.
The elevated rates of postnatal depression amongst our Pacific women is related to a lot of different things. The New Zealand-born Pacific people, approaching half, will fulfil the criteria for a diagnosis of anxiety or depression at some point during their life. Women fall between the worlds, where there's the expectation of things to be as they were, to have the family support. Another thing is lack of social support. Socioeconomic issues also have an impact. And interestingly, people at either end of the childbirth spectrum, so basically under 20 or over 40.
There was no friends, so I was very lonely and I had no family around. My husband realised, okay, I think something's up here. Initially, I was angry. I didn't want to accept it was a problem to deal with me.
In most Pacific cultures, there is a great stigma about mental health.
It's a very foreign concept in a lot of Pacific families that go through this because we do not talk about our mental health. Eventually, after having a good talk with him, I accepted that call to help. Immediately I felt at home, just understanding my cultural side. It felt welcoming.
It's so invaluable having Pacific working with Pacific, because you're able to make those connections, and then on the basis of the trust that they engender, we're then able to look at the more difficult questions.
The Whanawhale model is about the holistic approach, the whole person, because you can't treat one thing and leave one thing out.
When we work with our people, we try and connect them on which area they need help. We start off with the foundation, which is our family, and then our 4 pillars, which is our physical, our spiritual and mental, and the others. And then the roof is our culture.
It was definitely relatable. It was also confronting because maybe some of my pillars weren't as strong as I thought they were.
Pacific women who are pregnant and postpartum are much more likely to listen to family than to the health professionals, directly opposite to Pākehā women.
Without the family, I don't think they will be able to do well in their journey.
With all the tapu around bodies and the process, generally you wouldn't have dads there. But the younger men are getting keener on this, but may still be a little bit diffident about coming along.
Your grandmother, your mother, your sister, your auntie, they do get involved. They cannot talk about things that are really happening in the home. And sometimes clients struggle to build a relationship with us, because sometimes the family will say, no, we don't want you to talk to them about this and that. The way the parents were brought up, they still very much have the Samoa or the Samoan culture. Like, well, this is not what we expected from you.
I felt guilty if I did even consider looking after myself, because it's not considered humble. My family didn't understand that a woman could go through what I went through.
Mental health is a taboo in our culture. Too shy to ask for help, too scared to ask the in-laws. You know, I'm not sure whether they see me as a strong person.
It's seen as very shameful, because traditionally having signs of mental illness means that either you or your family have transgressed particular boundaries.
Having that whakamā or the curse on the family, that's probably where the stigma will come from. It's very important in our Pacific culture to start off with the prayer
Nō rira teki mai tauturu mai mātou, ki ora mātou i a koe. Amen.
There are questions that we ask, like, do you have thoughts of killing yourself? To ask a Pacific person that is actually questioning their faith, because there's a whole lot more around thoughts of harming yourself than just feeling like you don't want to be here anymore. So questions like that need to be asked very tactfully, or you'll just get a no.
Then we come to our physical needs. It's hard for them to talk. Sometimes they're embarrassed to share what they need to talk about. And then there's the others, which could be housing, to help them with parenting skills or other extra services that can wrap around our mothers. And then the roof is our culture. Everyone puts Pacific as one, but actually we're all different. For example, I'm Tongan, New Zealand born, and we have our own ways.
It's going backwards. Okay.
There are particular postpartum conditions which are culture bound. In Samoa there's whalelingau, in Tonga there's kita, and many of the symptoms of these conditions, you can map onto a postnatal depression. So if you identify as having, say, whalelingau, people know what to do and it's not stigmatized, whereas I have postnatal depression is going to be much more shameful.
Because some clients come in and they're kind of like, oh, we want to see a fofo or a Samoan healer. They don't really believe in taking tablets.
In fact, our preference is to work closely with the person using cultural practices and our medication. I looked at the medicinal herbs that were available in Samoa and Tonga to see if they would interact with our medications, and they didn't. However, the stigmatization of relying on pills is huge.
It did take a bit of convincing from the health practitioner and my husband to get me on the medication.
So using analogies can be really important. Having a broken leg, you put a plaster on, which is what the medication is, and it allows the leg to heal underneath while supporting you to be able to walk.
I was on that for 6 weeks and immediately saw changes. For Pacific mums who are going through a tough time, don't settle for that. There's definitely help for you.
Get to know the mum and her story. You personally need to make a connection with this woman. Allow her the chance to get to know us.
Getting to know their language, whether they're Tongan, Samoan, Fijian, just a simple hello or how are you.
Even if your pronunciation is terrible, making the effort is what's important.
When you go to someone's house, you have to leave your shoes outside. Even if someone says to you, no, come in with your shoes. No, you still have to take the shoes off. That's respecting the va, or the space is a secret, like a sacred space between you and the people that you work with. If it's a Samoan culture, you have to sit down before you speak.
Ask them whether they want to start off the meeting with a prayer, and if not, then just carry on.
You have to ask who is in the family, whether there's a matai in the family or an older person, because you have to speak with the older person.
Getting to know their families. I think in Māori they call it whakapapa, or us is their anga whakatonga, their whāmili, their kāinga, which is, where they come from.
So really encouraging as many family members as you can to be involved. You'll be able to pick up if there are any sticking points.
I didn't get many questions when I was with my lead maternity carer about how I felt, what feelings I was going through.
And just so, how are you really? And that's a good question anyway for mums.
When we're working with people, we look at all the important things about a person. That's a whole person.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a great model for Pacific people. That's a banana skin.
Banana skin.
I enjoy him so much more now that I'm in a better space. You count to mummy. 1.
It's cold.
Is it cold? So proud to be his mum. I can't imagine my life without him. Do you see Williami? He's an incredible kid. He's just full of life. Can you see a reflection here? He's a very, very loving boy.